Hello everyone, welcome to History. Today's story is The Other Voice Spoke to Me in My Sleep. If you end up enjoying this story, please leave a like. And if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe. Now, let's get to this nightmare. Ever since I was a kid, I sleep talked. I usually said weird and incoherent things that I had no knowledge of the moment I woke up. Other times, people would have an almost coherent, albeit brief, conversation with me I also couldn't remember. I was always fascinated by what my parents would tell me I said while I was sleep talking. It was sometimes something funny, sometimes something a bit spooky, or other times downright terrifying. But it was always interesting. So interesting, in fact, that I downloaded an app on my phone that allowed me to record myself sleep talking. This app in particular would skip silence, so if at any point no sound was happening, it wouldn't record anything. This gave rise to a lot of new observations, not just sleep talking. Turned out, I made weird noises in my sleep as well. Grunting and sometimes sleep singing. I couldn't always recognize my own voice, but it was funny to play it for people and see their reactions. For the last few years, ever since I left home, I hadn't been doing it anymore. My girlfriend tells me all about the things I say in my sleep, and I didn't feel the need to do it anymore. She would tell me stories of how I would kick her in the middle of the night while I was asleep, and she would have to push me away in order to get me to roll over. That would usually be followed up by me saying something stupid or funny that she would tell me about in the morning. These last few days, she's been on vacation at the beach. I chose to stay home so we wouldn't have to board our cats. After I got off of work one day, I scrolled through my apps and realized I still have the app that I used to record my voice when I was asleep. I have not once thought about it in 2 or 3 years, and I lost all of the other recordings when I swapped phones. The SIM card must have carried over all my apps to the new phone. I decided tonight I was going to try it again, record myself sleeping, and see what comes out of it. I wasn't sure how to set up my phone, because I used to have a small table that was further away from my bed. The problem I wanted to make sure I wasn't running into is the thing turned on and recorded me shuffling the sheets. I wanted to get it perfect, to capture only my voice and nothing else, not even the fan above me. Usually this would result in around 8 minutes of me talking or shuffling around. I tried to replicate my old setup to the best of my abilities, and then sat in my bed and tried to sleep. It's hard to sleep without moving much. No chance to get comfortable. Usually I would sleep with my girlfriend in the bed with me, so this new environment carried a new eeriness I don't think I was entirely ready for. It felt like I could hear every single creak the room made around me, and it came with the dread that something or someone could be lurking nearby. Everything I saw was dark, and with no one to go to and hold, I just had to look at the darkness. One of the cats would startle me once they jumped on the bed or jumped somewhere else. This was a new kind of on edge I haven't felt in a while. Everything just felt so dead. Even the air around me felt ominous, with only the white noise of the fan to keep the silence from seeping through my mind. Eventually, painstakingly, I fell asleep. When I woke up the next morning, I turned over and cut off my alarm. I shuffled through my phone and stopped the recording that was still running while my phone was plugged in. The first thing that set me off to something being weird was the time the recording had on it. 22 minutes. That was the most I have ever seen for any of these recordings. Like I said before, it was usually 7 or 8 minutes a recording. My first instinct was that maybe I set up the phone wrong. Maybe it was too close to the bed and caught my shuffling more than I intended. My second thought was maybe the cats were messing around with it and perhaps meowing at night. I didn't have cats before. I left home, so that made sense to me. Regardless, I sat down that morning and played it, intending to listen to the whole thing. That was when the second thing to set me off to something being weird became apparent. The whole thing was 22 minutes long, but for the first 1 or 2 minutes, it was dead silence. The app absolutely could not have recorded dead silence. When you set it up, it calibrates to the level of noise already in the room, and only records something if it goes above that. I had the fan on, but I turned the recording on after that. There was no way that the phone could have picked up such a long increment of dead silence. There was nothing. And when I skipped ahead a minute, still nothing. When I skipped ahead another time, then another, and another, there was nothing but dead silence for the first 10 minutes. It was strange, but in my brain, I could put together the pieces logically. I must have set up the phone wrong. The recording must have picked something up and just didn't turn off. There was a multitude of things it could have been, I was sure. After some more time, however, the things stopped being explainable. The third thing that set me off to something being weird happened. There was a metal scratching, almost like a scraping of something metal against metal. I wasn't sure how long the scratches were in between one another, because of the recording cutting out dead space and sound. This on the recording at least went on for about another 3 minutes. However, it sounded like each scratch was getting louder, closer almost, until finally there was a metal clunk, like something opening and closing. After that, another long segment of recording silence, around 3 to 4 minutes of it. Then came the breathing. On the recording, I began hearing soft but labored breaths. It was almost as if the breathing was straight into the phone. At first, I tried rationalizing that it could have just been me. I may have rolled over to the phone and began breathing into it, snoring. Then I realized how incorrect that was. Remember when I said that I tried to replicate my old setup for the recording? I got pretty close, and that usually means that the phone isn't somewhere super nearby, and that is the way I had it. So either I rolled over onto my end table and across it and breathed into it, or it wasn't me who was breathing. This went on for about 2 minutes. 2 minutes of unceasing breathing. 2 minutes of wondering who in the hell was in our room. 2 minutes of dread. Then the silence resumed again. About another 2 minutes of it on the recording. At this point I was glad whatever was happening seemed to be over. I was also hoping that the last 2 minutes would be nothing. Then it spoke. Whatever it was. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, just that the voice was so deep and raspy. It sounded like an old chain smoker putting on their best scary voice to scare kids at Halloween time. And it said,
"I know when you sleep."
A few moments passed. I sat in stunned silence. I knew that couldn't have been my voice. It was impossible for me to speak like that. I heard that metal clunk again, some squeaking, and then that same scraping noise from earlier. That went on for the last 2 minutes as the scraping got further and further away. I sat staring at the blank screen on my phone for what felt like ages. Sweat was pouring down my face. From there, I stood up and I walked into the bedroom. I looked around the room for something, anything that could have told me what this thing was. When I walked further into the room, I stepped on something sharp. When I looked down, I saw a small black screw lying on the floor. I picked it up and looked around for what it could be from. And there it was, clear as day. The vent in the room was missing a screw. I wasted no time and called the police. After that, I told my girlfriend we needed to stay somewhere else for the time being, but I had no idea how to explain why. I remember I told her that someone had tried breaking in, and I felt unsafe. I told her to meet me at a friend's place that was at the complex we were in while the police investigated. I didn't have the heart to tell her that whatever this thing was, it could come in whenever it wanted, and it knew when I was sleeping. The end. That was The Other Voice Spoke to Me in My Sleep. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like. I hope you all have had a great day, and have a good night.